What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the reveal of number 11 in my power rankings, a deep dive into the Kansas City Chiefs. Real quick, I don't like to plug, but in 22 videos, I haven't really plugged anything, so just deal with it for a second. Make sure you guys are liking these videos as we go, even if you disagree with the rankings. If you like the content overall, if you're learning a thing or two, liking the videos simply puts my videos higher in the pecking order for recommendations and suggestions to attract more people, which is obviously a big goal of mine. If just a quarter of you liked each video, I think the views on these deep dives would double. Also, make sure you're following me on Twitter. That's at TFG_football. As we near the season, you're not going to want to miss out on my daily takes to reactions and the goings of the league. Check out my Twitch for Madden streams, including 2 to 3 games a week from our 32-man Ultra Realism League. And lastly, my Patreon. That's patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy, where you will get awesome perks such as my full fantasy rankings, early access to videos, and possibly most importantly, you can help out the PS4 community by contributing to my stretch goal that will see my custom roster on PS4 for Madden 19. All right, enough plugging. Let's talk some Chiefs. So looking at the comments from this series, 11 in the power rankings actually seems to be just a touch above consensus on this team. NFL.com has them at 17th, though ESPN does have them up at 10. Overall, frankly, this team has so many, not just studs, but real stars on this roster. So throughout this video, we're going to break down the whole roster, rank the team by position, how they stack up against the rest of the league, as well as talk about some under-the-radar players to keep an eye on. And then we'll take a look at the schedule here, talk Vegas over-under, and ultimately what sort of results I expect from Kansas City. So obviously, this season and really the future of this team will go by what Patrick Mahomes can become. And there is a lot of hype surrounding Mahomes. I've been saying that I believe I'm somewhere in the middle in terms of my expectations, because coming out, I wasn't really sure what to think of Pat. For those that have followed my channel, it is abundantly clear how I feel about Big 12 football, but there really is no denying the potential in Patrick Mahomes. And some people like to call him the next Brett Favre. Well, if Mahomes is the next Brett Favre in this era, where teams are smarter throwing the ball, they limit turnovers, throwing 20 to 25 picks a season like Favre used to, simply won't be sustainable for the Chiefs in the modern game. So that said, from a mental standpoint, where in my opinion he had coming in and still has a long way to go in terms of pre and post snap play recognition and decision making, there is no denying the fact, and really it's hard not to admire the fact, that the Chiefs have done such a good job setting up Mahomes for success. You always hear the narrative of letting guys sit and learn, and sitting behind Alex Smith for a year, whose play style is a beautiful polar opposite of Mahomes' style, which is much more aggressive. So that'll help potentially Mahomes take better care of the football. And then to surround him with the type of weapons that he's going to have here, 2 explosive outside receivers and the best receiving tight end in the NFL not wearing a robot arm. And then, in my opinion, you also have 2 really good running backs who can catch the ball as well in Spencer Ware and, of course, Kareem Hunt. So Mahomes ranks 19th for me in terms of overall quarterback. So that alone is sort of an optimistic projection of how he comes out of camp and sort of starts the season week 1 for this team. But the reason I say I'm in the middle in terms of the hype is I think there's some out there who see Mahomes finishing the season as a top 10 QB and even an MVP candidate on the league. Look, when you talk about my 5 elite quarterback traits, this is the list I've come up with, 5 tools that elite game-breaking quarterbacks consistently use to elevate the play of those around them and transcend scheme. That's the money term here on this channel, transcending scheme. So frankly, Mahomes already has 2 of my 5 traits. Number 1, which is the see-ball, hit-ball arm, the ability to use arm talent and instincts to command the ball, to place it anywhere on the field with precision and authority, whether you're standing clean in the pocket, rolling left or right, or about to get hit. This is the ability to put the ball wherever the QB wants, whenever the QB wants. And there might be 6 to 10 players in the world who I would assign this trait to. Patrick Mahomes is one of them. And then you talk about trait number 5, mobility. And physical speed and quickness are great and can help you do this, but this is all about the ability to sense pressure from all directions, manipulate the pocket, and most importantly, know when and how to use your feet to buy time and create third or fourth options on a play when the defense takes away those first few reads. This is often a criticism I have of Cam Newton and Marcus Mariota and other guys, is they have this amazing speed, but way too often they hold the ball too long, fail to sense pressure, and most importantly, don't know when it's okay to use your feet to buy time to open up those third or fourth targets, as opposed to forcing a tough pass in Cam's case, or taking the easy check down too early in Marcus Mariota's case, where you end up having to punt because you get a nice 7-yard completion, but they come up short of the first down. So anyway, Patrick Mahomes, in the limited time that we have seen him, it would seem already manipulates the pocket and extends plays at a very high level, maybe even top 10 already in that department. As far as traits 2 through 4, 2, the ability to throw guys open. 3, pre-snap play recognition. Think Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, knowing where the ball needs to go before the ball is even snapped. And then 4, on the other end of that, post-snap play recognition, recognizing disguised coverages and blitzes and being able to adapt on the fly and make smart decisions with the football. All 3 of these traits in the middle here, only time will tell, but with the tools around him and in his body, the only man capable of stopping Mahomes from becoming an elite quarterback down the road, it truly is Patrick Mahomes. So that was way more time than we normally spend on one player, but seeing as the season is so much dependent on Pat, it seems acceptable that we would talk a lot about him. So to start, I've got Patrick Mahomes tied for 19th, but by the end of the season, I think it's more likely than not he comes in that 12 to 15 range, given some more development, and coming in with guys like Marcus Mariota, Derek Carr, and maybe even Cam Newton. But I also think we see a few hiccups along the way. So then moving on to running back here, they come in at 11th, Kareem Hunt. It all starts with him. Was so good to see him break out, lead the league in rushing after I was very high on him in last year's class. What he does so well is understanding angles, the balance as a runner. The man just does not go down. And side note, keep an eye on John Kelly for the Rams, almost an identical scouting report that I had to Kareem Hunt. Anyway, he's not going to wow you with his explosiveness. He's a good athlete, but he's not like a David Johnson, Todd Gurley. And I do think ultimately that limits his upside and keeps him in the 5 to 10 range for most of his career. But as far as skill and finesse, he's in the top 3, if not the most skilled running back in the league. Catches the ball so smooth as well. And then don't sleep on Spencer Ware. He's coming off a serious leg injury, but he's a player that I really liked. I liked him coming into last season quite a bit. Is sneakily athletic, runs with power, catches the ball very well, a determined runner. So I like him if he can get healthy to relieve Kareem Hunt, maybe make it a 60-40, 70-30 split. The team can keep Kareem Hunt healthy if they were to make the playoffs. So from fantasy standpoint, I am a little lower on Kareem Hunt this year just from a pure numbers standpoint, but that is contingent on Spencer Ware being healthy. So for fantasy players, do monitor that situation, the health of Spencer Ware. And then you've also got Damian Williams. You talk about Spencer Ware and his career path as a completely under the radar, undrafted free agent. Damian Williams, a very similar athlete. The Chiefs have done such a good job taking these low investment guys and turning them into impact players. So I'm not going to say it's going to happen for Damian Williams, but he does have a very nice physical profile, good size speed combination. If he were to get an opportunity here, I would not be the least bit surprised if he had a Spencer Ware-like breakout. And then you got Charcandrick Charmander West here. I just see a third down receiving back, kind of an expendable player. And then also Kerwin Williams, similar type of guy. I think those two will be competing for the 4th running back spot on this team. And then you move on to wide receiver, where they come in tied for 4th. And you want to talk about explosive potential with Patrick Mahomes and what we said about his upside, paired with Sammy Watkins, Tyreke Hill. Talk about upside there, and then Travis Kelce. So I do think this all starts actually with Sammy Watkins. A lot of people questioned that signing because he has been very quiet over the last 18 months or so. But you go back to before his most recent injury in Buffalo, which I think was a foot injury. Before that happened, he was starting to emerge as a top 5-7 receiver in this league. And that was with Tyrod Taylor. And then he goes to the Rams. He plays with Jared Goff, who's fine, but they mixed things around. They spread it out. I don't think they really made Sammy Watkins a feature in that offense. And then he hits the market, and the Chiefs see all this potential. And a lot of times we see these players getting paid off potential, and it doesn't work out. But in this case, I actually am buying into Sammy Watkins. I think the upside to utilize him on all three levels as a well-rounded route runner, a very good deep threat. I'm just buying into Sammy Watkins reestablishing himself as a top 10 receiver in this league. Now, he's got to prove it. He's got to prove that he can work well in this scheme, but I am buying stock in Sammy Watkins for this season and this offense as a whole. And then you talk about Tyreke Hill, and it pains me to say that there's a chance I might actually be a smidgen lower on Tyreke Hill because I think there are people that would group him with like Keenan Allen, Doug Baldwin in that tier 2 of wide receivers. I see him more in tier 3. And the reason I say that is, yes, he is used on all three levels of the offense in short, intermediate, and deep passes. But what I need to see from Tyreke Hill is for him to diversify that route tree, become a more precise route runner. I need to see corner post routes, comebacks, sitting in on zones, understanding zone coverages much better, option routes, all that kind of stuff that can help a guy become that Doug Baldwin, even all the way up to a tier 1 Odell Beckham type of receiver, which Tyreke Hill totally has that upside, but he's just not there yet. You could project him to get there, absolutely. If everything goes right here, we could seriously be talking about both Sammy Watkins and Tyreke Hill as top 10 receivers. But again, a lot needs to go right. I've got both those guys in that tier 3 right now. The one knock you will have on this receiving core is there's not very good depth behind them. You got Chris Conley. I'm kind of done believing that he could be anything more than a wide receiver 4 or 5. I think he would have shown much more development at this point. Does have a lot of physical traits, but just hasn't been able to turn that into any sort of finesse game. You got Demarcus Robinson. He could emerge as the number 3 here. Jehu Chesson, 4th round pick from last year as well. But, honestly, none of those guys excite me too much. I would not be surprised at all to see Byron Pringle, an undrafted free agent here out of Kansas State, to emerge as the starting slot receiver for this team, which is a diminished role on this team, by the way, because Travis Kelce is going to line up in that slot a lot. But do keep an eye on Byron Pringle. If this becomes an explosive offense and the pie becomes very big here from a fantasy lens, Pringle could have some value in PPR leagues. And then you talk about the tight ends here. Travis Kelce, just what else can you say about the guy? Should not be allowed to be that fast at that size. Separates so well, has great hands, amazing after the catch, and he blocks. He is the second best tight end in the NFL behind Gronk. And then you got not the best depth behind him, Demetrius Harris, Timothy Wright, Jace Amaro. I guess it could be worse, but it'd be a pretty big drop off if anything were to happen to Kelce. So the receiving core is top heavy, but it is a very good receiving core. They come in tied for 4th. And then the offensive line, kind of rinse and repeat here. It's been an average line for the last couple of years. Eric Fisher has settled in as a starting caliber left tackle. He's not dominant, but he gets the job done. Left guard, you are going to let Zach Fulton go here, and this was kind of a revolving door at left guard as they dealt with the Mitch Morse injury last year, so it's probably going to be Parker Ehringer. They do have Cam Irving, Jordan Devey. That left guard is going to be a liability and is dragging this thing down, but center to right tackle is very, very solid. Mitch Morse, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, and Mitchell Schwartz. It's a very good center to right tackle. The depth here is very much concerning, though. They got to stay healthy, period. So overall, the offense ranks 15th, right in the middle there, but the upside for this offense. If things go right, we are talking about a top 3 offense in the league. I don't think it's going to take too much to make that jump, but it is hard to project everything to go right for a team. But you talk about the upside of Pat Mahomes paired with the potential of Sammy Watkins and Tyreke Hill to hit a new level in terms of consistency as wide receivers, and then Travis Kelce and this running game. It could get really explosive and could exceed number 15 very quickly. Just some unknowns here dragging it down a little bit. So then you flip it over to the defensive side of the ball here. The Chiefs actually come in at 7th for defense, and that might seem a little high, and I'm probably going to get some flack for that rating, which is totally fine. I get it. This team was in the bottom 5 for total yards allowed last year. They were in the top half for points per game. I mean, this really comes down to getting Eric Berry back, and we'll talk about him when we get to the secondary. But I also am projecting a slight increase in play from Justin Houston, starting to, come off a second straight year of being healthy, dealt with a pretty major injury, is slowly returning from that. But the other big thing here is this defense always has been about bend, don't break, kind of similar to the Patriots in that way, although their style of scheme is a lot different. And then turnovers. And the big thing here is this team does lose Marcus Peters, who is a turnover machine, fan favorite player. I think the departure of him has had a lot of people writing off this Chiefs defense. But you bring Eric Berry back, that is an upgrade. I'd rather have Eric Berry than Marcus Peters. And there's other reasons to think that this team's going to figure it out. So let's go through this thing positionally. We'll start with the run defense, and this is not pretty. This is a big reason they give up so many yards, is the run defense has been pretty bad here. You look up front, you got Chris Jones. We mentioned the stars on this roster. He is one of them. But aside from him, you really don't have a whole lot to work with. Xavier Williams, Allen Bailey, Jarvis Jenkins, Stephen Charles, and then they draft Derek Nadi in the 3rd round. We'll see what he can bring. And then you also have D. Liner here, probably the most fitting name of any player in the NFL. I'd love it if he worked out. This is what he was born to do. But in certain matchups, teams are going to be able to run the hell out of the football, and it's going to be tough for the Chiefs to stay in those games. But overall, if you look at how I calculate my power rankings, run defense in this passing league, it is diminished, and it is much more about forcing turnovers and playing pass defense. So let's talk about the pass rush, the group mainly responsible for creating turnovers. Yes, it's the D-backs that get the interceptions, but without pass rush, that interception number is just not going to be very high. So we mentioned Justin Houston. He played all of last year and was pretty quiet. I mean, he had some flashes in the pan, but compared to what he once was, he certainly was not at that level. He's only 29 years old, so I am expecting him to take another step up, have a better year than he had last year. Probably not be all the way back to what he once was, but still a very high level top 5 to 10 pass rusher. Also so good in coverage, by the way. And then you've got a good rotation. You've got D Ford there, 1st round pick from 2014. Really disappointing year last year, but did show a lot the year before. And then you've got Breland Speaks, a 2nd round pick out of Ole Miss, kind of a hybrid player, a guy that's going to have to develop but has a lot of physical upside, can rush off the edge, put his hand on the ground, play inside on 3rd down, rush from the inside. So a versatile guy. I would expect him to actually play quite a bit this year. And then a 2nd round pick from last year, Tano Passanio, total freak athlete, 2nd round pick, super raw. If he can start to figure some things out and start to realize some of his potential, all of a sudden you're going to have a really versatile group up here, but really not a whole lot of depth. They come in 14th for pass rush, so pretty solid. They're going to do enough to help this team create turnovers and get after the quarterback. It's just not a super elite group. And then you look at the linebackers here, pretty low grade. They come in tied for 24th. I thought the contract they gave Anthony Hitchens was pretty preposterous. He's a fine player. He's slightly above replacement level starter, in my opinion. He's better in run defense than in coverage. And then you got Reggie Ragland, who started to emerge as a pretty good starter last year, particularly in run defense. But this linebacker grade is much more about covering and the modern league where you need athletic linebackers. So they draft Dorian O'Daniel in the 3rd round. And if he can solidify himself, which I think he has the role locked down as the 3rd down cover linebacker, but if he can be good at that like he was at Clemson, really instinctive guy, moves very well. If he can get a quick grasp on coverages, he could very quickly make an impact and boost this 24th ranking for linebacker way up, because they do have some good run defenders there. I just think they lack in coverage. Also keep an eye on Ben Neiman and Terrence Smith, some good athletes there at the depth. And then you move on to the secondary, and I mentioned this team lost Marcus Peters. I think a lot of people are going to rank this as a bottom 5 to 7 secondary. Look, it all comes back to Eric Berry and the things that this team can do with him, his versatility. He's one of the most rangy center fielders, but you can also bring him into the box and help in intermediate coverages. A great leader is going to help everyone around him. So they come in tied for 15th in terms of defensive backs. At corner, they're fine. They have really poor depth, but I did like, being able to bring in Kendall Fuller in that Alex Smith trade. That was a sneaky good acquisition there. He's listed as the nickel corner right now on Our Lads, but I think he can step outside, play some outside corner, and play it at a pretty high level, honestly. Last year was effectively his rookie year. He missed his first season more or less because of injury, and he did great in coverage, was rated very highly on PFF, but he's also a guy who has good ball skills in both run D and in pass coverage. Just like we saw from Marcus Peters, I truly believe Kendall Fuller can step outside and offer this team a decent margin of what they had in Marcus Peters. I think people are sleeping on that. And then they also had a good signing, I thought, in David Amerson. Now, he kind of fits what we've been talking about, how this team is going to give up some chunk plays. Amerson's not the most consistent in coverage, but he is a physical corner, can make big plays, especially on 3rd down. So he should be the number 2 here. And then Steven Nelson is the 3rd, whether he plays outside or nickel with Kendall Fuller there. It's hard to say, but the depth really starts to drop off. You got Will Redmond, Keith Reeser. They draft Tremon Smith in the 6th round. Really not expecting a whole lot from this depth. If they've suffered any injuries to those top 3, they better look to sign someone or trade for someone or something, because it's not good depth at corner. And then at safety, there is another hole there next to Eric Berry. I like Daniel Sorensen. I think he's more of a box safety, though. So he's going to get a lot of playing time. And then there's also room for another basically starter here. I think it's going to be Armani Watts, who emerges here, a 4th-round pick out of Texas A&M. Really good playmaker, good athlete, pretty rangy dude. So keep an eye on him to be kind of a sneaky impact on this defense as a rookie. If it's not him, Leon McQuay the 3rd, Eric Murray, not a whole lot of guys I'm too excited about there. So again, they come in 7th. In terms of total yards, it's not going to look like that at the end of the year. If you're looking by total yards, this team is probably going to be in the bottom half again. But points per game, getting Eric Berry back, along with some other things here, I think this team could definitely be in the top 10 in terms of points per game and turnovers. Just being a defense that teams aren't really looking forward to playing, even if in certain matchups they are going to look like a pretty bad defense, frankly. Specifically teams that have really good offensive lines to dominate up front. So then coach and culture is another thing dragging this team up. I love Andy Reid. I think people have bought in here to what he is selling. You can question his clock management skills at the end of games, but a pretty brilliant offensive mind. I've got Andy Reid here and the culture here coming in 4th in the league. Now the last part here, what you guys have been looking forward to, taking a look at the schedule and what my expectations are here for this Chiefs team. So their over-under is 8.5, and I am going to go over this year for the Chiefs. The schedule is not that bad. They do have a rough start, so they're going to have to rebound, I think. I've got them starting 2-4. Losing at the soccer stadium in Los Angeles, at Pittsburgh, at Denver, I've got them down for a loss, and then at New England. And then their home games there aren't any cakewalk either, San Francisco and Jacksonville. But after that, it's just downhill, much easier schedule here. So you got Cincinnati, Denver, at Cleveland, Arizona. At the Rams is tough, but then Oakland, Baltimore, the Chargers, and Oakland again. I think they're going to really heat up in the second half of the year. So I've got them winning 10 games here with a question mark next to Denver. They could get to 11. And then the other thing I will add here is, yes, I have the Chargers ranked above the Chiefs in terms of power ranking. And I haven't looked at their schedule yet, the Chargers, but playing in that soccer stadium, I do think that, one game here or there could be the difference for the Chiefs in terms of winning this division. So as of right now, the Chiefs are actually my pick to win the division, even if I think the Chargers have a better chance of winning the Super Bowl. As far as Super Bowl is concerned for the Chiefs, I'm not going to go there. I talked about the inconsistencies on defense and just too many unknowns in terms of Patrick Mahomes and this offense. Down the road, this could be a Super Bowl team, talking about future seasons, but they have got to get some better talent in here on defense, because unfortunately the primes of Justin Houston and Eric Berry probably will not coincide with when the rest of this team is ready. So you got to get some more stars in there on that defense for the future. So that's going to do it. Chiefs fans, let me know what your hopes and dreams are this year, what you thought of the video. The rest of you guys, what do you think? Too high, too low for the Chiefs? Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. It helps me out so much. Check out my Twitter, Twitch, Patreon. Shout out to Comp Keys for all of the music on this channel. Check out their Twitch for some cool live streams of them producing music on Twitch. Link for that in the description. So cheers as always, guys. Peace out. We'll see you next time.